Okay, with tables, we did a little table in PowerPoint, so you should be a little familiar with it. Now we're going to get comfortable with it. So to insert a table, let's go to Insert, Table. And in this, you can drag your mouse around and make a bunch of columns and rows. Now, the good part about tables is they're flexible once you learn them. So you can add more columns, more rows, delete columns, delete rows to customize it the way you need it. So let's do 2 by 4. 2 columns, 4 rows. Columns go up and down, rows go left and right. Each little square is called a cell, and the whole entire thing is called a table. Right? Okay, are you doing this with me? Good. Very good. Okay. All right, so let's click in the first cell and we're going to type our heading item. Press tab to go over to the next cell. Press tab to go down. Oh, I spelled hardware wrong. And what should we do once we get that table type? Before we go too much further, it'd be a really good idea to save it. Absolutely. Save it on your USB or wherever your storage you're using. You can call this Your Name Practice with Tables. Definitely save it. Absolutely. Okay, now I'm down here after that 850, that's where I left my cursor, and we need a new row. Well, there are many ways of doing things in a table. So if the row that you need is going to be down at the bottom, and you're on the bottom cell and you press tab, it's just going to show up. So that is a really nice feature. While we're here, I'll show you some of the other features. When you're in the table, you get table tools. Design makes it look fancy. And we'll do the styles a little bit later. Shading and borders, we've used those before. In layout, you have how to make it function good. You can delete columns and rows. You can insert above and below where your cursor is. You can insert a column left or right of where your cursor is. And I believe we looked at this last week or so in PowerPoint. And then we're going to talk about merging cells when we put a title on this a little bit later. Okay, so we have our table and it's saved. Selecting a column or a row. I like doing it this way. If I'm right above the column, I get a little arrow, down arrow, and I click, it selects the column. I find that this works the best for me. And to select the row, I go out to the left, and I showed this before, maybe not in a table, but when we were selecting rows in, I think earlier in Word. That's how I do it. I find that easier than dragging on things. Okay, to select the entire table, I use this little button here. It's a 4 arrows, and that selects the whole table. So let's select the heading, the header row, and make it bold. Next, let's look at sorting. When you have a whole table or a whole list, you may want to sort it. And we did this when we were working with file management, how to sort files by alphabetical or by date modified or by the size of the files. Okay, so when we're in our table, go to Table Tools, Layout, Sort is over towards the right. And the first thing it asks you is sort by. And then it'll give you a list of all the columns that are there. So let's leave it on item. Let's put it on item. The computer knows it's text, meaning there's words here. And we have ascending or descending. Ascending is alphabetical. So let's do that one first. So it should have put these in order. Access, A, C, S, E, and then the S. Did yours do it? Did you get it to work? Excellent. Okay, now yours doesn't show item in the drop down. Make sure your cursor is in the table when you go to sort. If your cursor is down here somewhere, I don't think it will. And, you know, here we go again. Are you using a Mac or a PC? Are you using Word? And if so, which version of Word? So there's a lot of those things. Perfect. Thanks, Brooke. Okay, next, I want you to sort on cost and put the biggest money first down to the smallest amount of money. So I'm going to give you a minute to try that before I show you. Okay, so I'm going to click on cost, and I'm going to go to my sort, And I'm going to change sort by to find cost. It's a number. And if I want big number to little number, is that ascending or descending? Descending. I always forget, but the good news is try it one way. If it doesn't look the way you want it to look, go back in and try it the other way. Descending, okay. And now it should be 25,000 and the 15,000 and so on. And please notice that these words change to stay with their associated number. Okay, let's insert a new column. Columns and rows. You can use this little shortcut, depending on what version of Word you have, or you can go up here to Table Tools Layout, and you can insert above where your cursor is, insert below from where your cursor is, insert left, insert right. Okay? So if you do it and it shows up not where you want it, undo, try it again. Let's put a new column in between the columns we already have. Okay. So the way that I would do this, and the reason I'm saying it like that, because there's not a right or a wrong way, but I would use this little shortcut in here. And now we're going to put in installation cost. And we made a few changes. What should we do? Save it again. You can't save too often, but you can retype stuff. Yesterday, my electricity went twice. So if I hadn't been saving, I would be losing. 2 different times yesterday. Okay, so now we have a new column. Let's look at deleting columns and rows. Let's say we don't need, let's change the name first. Over here where it says computer hardware, I'm going to double click on computer and I'm going to type workstation. So I double clicked and it selected the word, and then when I typed the new word, it erased the old word. If I triple click, it selects the entire cell. Okay, so we decided we're not buying servers. So select the row with server and delete it. So one way to select it is to go way out here. If I press delete, it gets rid of the words, but not the actual row. So when you're working with a table, you have to do it a little bit different. If I want to get rid of the whole row, I'm going to go up to my table tools, layout, delete row. And there might be a right-click shortcut. Okay, but with the table, and companies call me all the time, they get rid of the data, but the rows or the columns are still there. So then they pay me to fix it. All right, next, changing the heights or the widths. You can do this manually by dragging on the lines. Or you can use the cell size up here. If you know exactly you want it 7, you can type it in that. And then we have auto fit. Double click on it. It'll make it as wide as necessary. Like this one, there's a lot of wasted space. If I double click, it automatically changed the column width. Do that a lot in Excel. Now let's add styles to this. Design styles. I'm going to select the table, and each style has a name. Grid table 3, accent 5, grid table 5, accent 4, so on and so on. This category is list table. This category up here is grid table. Up here is plain. And they go on and on. And we've worked with designs before. And you know, stop your mouse on it because each one has its own name. Okay, so pick one that you like. And you can add border, you can remove borders. Design, it's a design feature. And I think it got those great big bold borders from the last thing we did. So I'm going to make them a little bit thinner. And I can do all borders, or just the outside borders, or just the inside borders. There's a lot that you can play with here and be creative. And then we just made some changes, so what should we do? Right? Yes, save. Now let's add a title. So click in the first cell, and we're going to layout, insert above. And when we get the row, it's divided up into 3 cells. So I'm going to select those cells. And what do we do so that we can put on a nice title? What do we want to do to those 3 cells? What's it called when we make 3 cells and we smush them into one? Merge, exactly. So we're going to click merge cells. Good morning. And then I'm going to center it. Center line is here in home. And I'm going to put on my title, right? Okay, did you get your title? Insert row, then merge it, then center it, then type your title. Okay, let's add a new row to the bottom. Let's make a new row on the very bottom. Okay, Iris, send me an email later. Okay, so I went to that 850 and I pressed tab and that made a new row at the bottom. I'm going to merge these first two cells. And I'm going to type the word total and right align it. Email me if you need anything. Okay, did you get that? Now we're going to make the computer add these together for us. So click underneath the cost and we're going to go formula, and it says, I think you want to add the numbers above your cursor, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, so we made a new row. We highlighted the first two and merged it and put total. And then over here we went to formula, and it already knew what we wanted to do with that sum above. Okay, did you get that part? Did you get it to sum for you? Okay, so that's a little bit more about tables. Next, we're going to do tabs. So you can start a new piece of paper, or you can open a new document. And I want to show you about tabs. This picture came from your book, but I want to explain about tabs. Like tables, tabs are used to organize your words, your material. So we have several kinds of tabs. This picture came from your book, so this is explained really well in your ebook if you need to go back and practice. Tables and tabs are extremely useful. And once you get used to them, you will see that they're very helpful. But like anything new, it seems hard and complicated. So you have to practice. Okay, so we have a left tab, which lines things up at the left, on the left. All the words are lined up with the left letter. Center tab, all are centered. A right tab, the right letter of all the words or phrases are lined up. A decimal tab lines up money or decimal points. There is a bar tab that puts a line or a bar in your document. I've never used it. And then there's one tab that I use all the time that's not in your book, and it's called a dot leader tab. This is great for table of contents or a telephone list when you have a list of things on the left and then a related list on the right, and it's really hard to follow. I don't know if you can see me, but it's really hard to follow across the page. If you have everyone's name here and their phone number way over here, it's really hard to run across unless you have a line paper like this, or the little dots that you can use. If you have a names here and their phone numbers over here, without that line or dots going across, it's really hard to follow through. Table of contents is like that. If you didn't have dots, it'd be hard to find your way across the page. Or an index with page numbers, or a telephone listing. So that's what the dots are used for. So let's practice tabs. We'll do a few different kinds. So on a clean sheet of paper, make sure your ruler is on. The ruler is a big help with tabs. If your ruler is not on, go to View, Ruler, and turn it on. View, Ruler. Okay, so let's make a list. And in between, we're going to put people's names. Press Tab and the title. Enter. Tab. Okay, please notice that they're lined up on the left because that's the margin. We press tab in between and it gave it a little space. To see exactly what the computer sees, I'm turning on this show hide marker. And you could see where I pressed the space bar, there's a little dot. Where I pressed tab, there's an arrow. And where I pressed enter is a paragraph marker, like a backwards P. So sometimes this helps to see where things are. Even though we used a tab, they didn't line up because everyone's name is a different length. So to fix that, I'm going to highlight these three and using my ruler around 2.5, I'm going to press my mouse and that's going to make a new tab, and all these guys are going to jump over and get lined up with this 2.5-inch tab. Try that. I'm going to undo and show you again. Highlight these and look how I'm highlighting them. I'm going out to the margin and dragging down. Then I'm going to very carefully go to the 2.5-inch marker right below the little scale. I'm going to click and it's going to make a left tab and line these up. That's why it's so helpful to have the ruler, because tabs show up on the ruler. Did you get that to work? Okay, and if you wanted more space in here, you could drag that little L. Yeah, it takes practice. Drag very carefully, drag that little L, and maybe we'll take it over to 4. And that'll give us more space in here. We can carefully drag it back and forth. Now, if you made a new tab by accident, to delete one of these L's, click and drag it off the ruler, lift up your finger, and that will delete it. If you ended up with more than one left tab, more than one L, you can drag the L off and that will delete it. And you have to be pretty precise with the mouse also. So you're going to need to practice that to get good at it. Now, if I wanted to change that, I could carefully, precisely double click on the L and it'll open up the tabs box. And maybe I wanted to have the dots. We were talking about the dot leader. So click on the number 2, set OK, and now there's dots in here. Okay, I'm recording this. If you need to practice it later, you can watch and listen again and go at your own pace. Okay, let's do some more with tabs. So enter a few times to get on a clean area of your screen. Notice when you pressed enter, the tabs that you made are still there. So let's use the menu for this one. Let's go into paragraph, And then down the bottom left, tabs. And the one that we made is there, so we're going to clear it all out. Clear all. Clear all. So let's make a tab stop at 1 inch. And let's keep it left, none, set. Then go back up and let's make one at 3. And let's make it a center tab. Set. And the last one, let's make it 5 inches. And let's make it a right tab. Set. Okay, so first when we went in here, we cleared everything out. And then at 1 inch, we set. Then we typed a 3 and we made it a center tab, set. And then 5 inch right tab, set. Then click OK and look at your ruler. You should see what we just did. L for the left tab, upside down T for the center tab, and a right L for the right. So when we type our new table, in order to use the tabs we created, we must press the tab key. Press tab and we're going to type Ed. Tab again, he lives in SFO. Tab again, his number is 001. Enter. Tab, Shelley. And notice your left tab is aligning them with the left letter. Tab, she lives in Fort Lauderdale. And notice the center tab is centering them. Tab again, and this is a right tab. And let's say her number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they're lined up on the right side because it's a right tab. How you doing? Anyone need help? Did you get it? I'm assuming you're saying no, do you need help? Oh, that's great. So tabs and tables are great to organize your material. Now, you might have done, if you didn't know about tabs, you might have typed Ed and then spacebar, 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 and it doesn't line up really great, and it's hard to use, and if you make a change, you mess it up, and then when you get way over here, they might not line up right. So using tabs is by far a better option than spacebar, spacebar, spacebar. But I know people that do that. Even when they go to center a title, instead of using center align, they'll just go sit on that space bar 50 times. You're going to have to context engage for that. It's in D2L under Start Here is a link to Cengage. Okay, so that's tabs and tables. So it's in your training. I think it's in your project, but I don't recall. The rest of the chapter has smart art, which we did in, yes, stay a minute and we'll talk about it. Smart art we did in PowerPoint. And it has, you put borders on pictures, which we did in PowerPoint. So that's the rest of the chapter. Okay, let me put back up the calendar. Okay, so we finished the Word material from our ebook. So, and with you doing your trainings, you should be more comfortable with it. Now, I'm saying it that way because anything new takes practice to get comfortable with it. And then to get proficient with it, it takes a lot of practice. And that's up to you to do on your own, especially since the summer session is so fast. I also want to remind you to work ahead. As due dates come and go, the previous assignments will be turned off and you won't have access to them anymore. When we get to the last week of classes around the 15th of the month of June, there will be no more, can I have more time or I need extra time, because I must get the grades in on time. So please, please work ahead. A couple of you have less than 1,400 points. You're not keeping up with us. So your option now is to jump in and do Microsoft Word. Forget about the old stuff because now it's past due. So jump in Word trainings, and then the Word projects. Okay? We are ahead of schedule, so next class, the last class asked me, I gave them options on what we could do, and they suggested that we do the projects in class. Do you agree with that? Okay, but what I'd really like for you to do is go through the projects once on your own and submit it, so that when I'm doing it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And any items that you got wrong, we can hopefully work through it. Yes, they do take time. We can work through it during class next time, and then you can re-upload it. But I would like you to already have tried them so that you're familiar with them, so that when we do them in class, whatever you got marked wrong on, we can hopefully work it out, and your classmates can help us also. And then you can fix them and re-upload them. And then on next Thursday, we'll start Excel. So we're moving along at a good clip, but this is the pace to get us done on time. And it takes dedication on your part. We're at midterm now, so there's only 3 weeks left. And you can do it for another 3 weeks and get things squared away and do what's required. Like I said, if you don't have a 55 average, you probably are behind. You are behind. So get with word projects. Okay, I want to show you some practice with the tables and tabs, and hopefully that will reinforce what we just did together. So let me open up one of my worksheets, this one. And I want to open up a blank Word document. And put it over here. Okay, so what I made was a worksheet to practice tables and tabs. And it's kind of like what we just did as the example, but this is going to just be more practice. Okay, so get a clean screen in Word and make sure you have your rulers on. Okay, so on this one, we're going to do tabs first. So we're going to we're going to put in our type in the title and subtitles and then use your tabs. Okay, so let's go into, if we have a bunch of tabs to do and a bunch of different kinds of tabs, it's always easier to go in the menu. Paragraph, tabs. The first one says at 1/2 inch, so that's 0.5, and it's a left tab set. The next one's at 3 inches, and it's a center tab set. And the last at 5.5, 5.5, and it's a right tab with a leader. That's the dots. Dots number 2. Number 3 are dashes, and number 4 is a line. And set and OK. If you look at your ruler, you should see the tabs that we set. Okay, so first we have a title, and we're going to center the title. Favorite comics. And our subtitle. And turn off center. And this is where we should be right now. Before I continue, let's make sure the tabs are set up. You should have an L at 1/2 inch, an upside down T, which means center, at 3, and a right tab at 5.5. That's why having your ruler on is so important, because it really helps us. Okay. So to use the tab that we made, what do we have to do to use a tab? We have to press the tab key to use it. And our heading, comic, tab, cartoonist. Let me retype that. That didn't come out right. And then we made a right dot tab to put created. Enter, tab, Beetle Bailey, tab, tab. Did yours come out similar to mine? Do we need more practice doing this? No, you don't need any more practice. You got it? Excellent. Okay. So let's get a clean screen. I'm going to do Control Enter to go to a new page. But when I did that, the old tabs came with me. So I'm going to drag them off to delete them. So my new tabs, or what I'm doing, doesn't interfere with the old tabs. And this time I'm doing a table. Create a table, 3 columns and 9 rows. Insert, table, 3 columns, and mine only goes to 8, so I can add another one later, or I can do insert table and type them in here. Three by 9. Okay, and we're going to put a title. I'm going to move this out of my way. Make this bigger. Much better. We're going to make a title on the first row. So what do we have to do in order to make the 3 cells become 1 cell? Merge, exactly. So select these 3 and click merge. And then the title is I'm going to center it. And then it has a subtitle, so I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to merge and center. then I can start typing my information. And we accomplish the same thing. Everything is nice and neat and lined up. Same thing like this, nice and neat and lined up. You can elect to use tabs or tables. Then when you're done typing the table, if you don't want these lines, you can, they're borders, right? You can say no borders. And there is also grid lines you can remove. So now it looks very much like that one. So if you had items you needed to line up, would you use tabs or tables? Tabs. They do the same job, so whichever one you get comfortable with, that you get used to, fabulous. But I suggest you make friends with one of these, and the rest of your career will be easier. Tables. I tend to use tables. I've done resumes in tables and then lined it up and then removed the borders, and no one knew that my resume was a table. So there are a lot of good features. To get good at them, you have to practice. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Questions for me? Okay.